Well, thank you, Mom and Dad. Mom, that was good. There's a lot of pieces there that I think, it had to be short and sweet, but we have a whole video on it on how we met, and I did not. When I went to that meeting, it was last minute because I was living with a bunch of guys, and I was like, I have to go to that meeting. I don't know why. I have to go to that Heaven Fest meeting, and it was like five of us just jumped in a vehicle and just went up there, and I saw her at the door, and I got to go to the bathroom. I remember I saw her at the door. She was handing out, information, and I just bolted right to the bathroom, and I was, I didn't know. I really didn't know what was going to happen. I'll just be honest with you. I didn't. But the Lord did tell me through my brother that I was going to get a second chance. So I think that was my second chance. And the Lord gave it to me. And it was a long time for her. It was a long time for me looking for a wife. And that's why I moved to Colorado. I told God when I was in Florida, I was on the beach, and I said, I'm moving to Colorado, but I want to find my wife. So there it is. So, Mom and Dad, I just thank you for this opportunity, and I thank everyone here. You guys look really cozy. I actually really like the seating, and I really like the way it is. It's not straight chairs and rows. It's just nice and comfortable. This is the first time we've been here since the renovation, so it's awesome. But, and then Teresa got a little sick, and she was like, well, did you want to preach? And I was like, well, I could try. I mean, we'll see what happens. So she wasn't feeling it, and we were just really busy this last week, and they were out of town. They were in West Palm in Florida, enjoying the beautiful weather, and it was just a busy week. Freezing. Yeah, I know that weather so anywho. All right. So let's get into it. Perfect. So just a little backstory on this passage here. This is one of my favorite Bible passages that we have. There's a bunch of them in the Bible. There's the Old Testament and New Testament. Jesus preaches about it, but it's one of the greatest commandments is to love him with all your heart, mind, and soul. And this particular one is in the Old Testament, Deuteronomy, and it's, Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God. The Lord is one, and as for you, you shall love the Lord God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. Okay? If there's a foundation that I could give any of you, it doesn't matter how old we are. It doesn't. This passage should be on our hearts, because this is the way I'm gonna share with you how I believe we should be loving God. And I'm gonna break down some Hebrew words on what love, heart, soul, and strength are. And I'm going to kind of go into it a little bit with the meanings of each one. So, and I might give you a little history lesson here and there. So we'll see. All right. So the second slide, love. Love, avah. Avah is the Hebrew word. This word in the Bible is mentioned a bunch of times. It means affection or care. Since it was Deuteronomy, this is ancient Hebrew. Okay, we have to remember, just a caveat, we have to remember what we're talking about here, because Deuteronomy is what the 5 books of the Torah, the first 5 books of the Torah. So their Hebrew was very old and very ancient, which I actually really like because it's the foundation of who the Lord is. But this word avah is an affection or care, and it shows, it embodies our whole love for God. That's what it means. And there's not only, it's not just the love, but there's also a physical touch, and there's also an action with this love. The way that the scholars, basically what I was researching, what they were sharing with me when I was reading, it was the strongest love that God feels. So if you can imagine that, the strongest love, it's in the New Testament with agape, Philadelphia, and all the levels of love that there are. It's very interesting because the New Testament, Paul breaks down those loves a lot different. But in this word avah in Deuteronomy, it's a little bit more. I almost feel like it's a more authentic because it's more ancient. It's an ancient word, and so it is the strongest love that God feels. And we can't. Here's the cool thing: we can't just love someone, just physically loving someone. We also have to put action to it, right? So there's more than just saying I love you with your words. There's also an action with that, and you know, you guys can imagine what action that looks like. If that's giving a neighbor, you know, some food, the way that you guys shared table. I mean, the way that you guys show your love, the way I show my love, the way Teresa shows her love. It's the same way that the Lord would love you. Okay? And I think that's one of the most important things to understand. Yeah. So, hold on one second. No, that's all right. If you guys could just bear with me, it is my first time really preaching by myself. I usually have someone next to me or something, but I have a bunch of notes. I just need to, so we were designed to love. I'm going to go on something because I feel like I learned something that was awesome. We were designed to love, and God created us to love Him. And what really stops us is our choice and our will and our free will. But here's the cool thing. But we can love Him no matter what. And I think that's the most important thing. But we are designed. If you can think, the Lord made us, He made Adam and Eve, we are supposed to love Him. Okay? And I think that's probably, it's very simple. I'm going to tell you right now, I am more simple than simple. I love simple. And if God just told me all you have to do is love me, let's go. I don't care. You don't have to give me instructions. You don't have to do anything. You just say, love me. Okay, I'm loving you, God. You don't have to do anything. If the Lord said, love Teresa, she's my daughter, I'll love Teresa. She's God's daughter. You know what I mean? You know, love my parents. I will love them. Love you guys. Love your neighbors as yourself. That's what we are called to do, really, in all scheme of things. It does not matter. Here's the thing. It does not matter what someone did. It's very important. Okay, I'll give you an example on the ball field with the kids. It is so funny when it comes to sports parents and sports kids because there's an opponent there that you're going against, and we are supposed to hate them or not like them or go against them and give it to them a little bit. And I definitely go against the grain on that one. And I shake the refs' hands. I shake the coaches' hands. I want all the kids to shoot. I don't care if they miss it or if they beat us. If a kid is good and he's making all of his shots, you know what? let's praise him. I don't care if he's on the other team or he's on my team. I would like the same way. And I think that's what the Lord really wants from us as a whole. I think it's important, just as Christians, really. If you just be honest with you, it's something that should be shown throughout all the church, really. But we have a lot of. I think there's a mindset. Really, I think there's just a mindset in. There's an old mindset, and now with this new generation coming up, all the kids. The couple of kids on the other team today were like, "Good shot," giving the other, our kids on our team like a high five, like, "Good shot, that was a good move." And I just thought, I think this new generation is figuring out what love is, and it's radical. You could just tell that it is different. People actually kind of like each other, even though they're going against each other. They're playing against each other. They're just having a fun time. So I just hope that continues, and I hope to see that, So, anyways, yeah. Kurt, next slide. It should be heart. Next one. Okay. All right. So this word emphasized in that passage in Deuteronomy, heart. This word is pronounced lev. All right? It's very interesting with this word, what I found out. The Hebrews did not know what mind was. They didn't have a word for mind. The ancient Hebrews, they didn't have the word for mind. They just had a word for heart. They thought everything they thought was through their heart. That is what they thought. So anything that came to their heart, they were like, they didn't even have a word for their mind. So it's very interesting how Paul in the New Testament kind of dives into the mind, because in Timothy and in Matthew and in Mark, some of those other passages, they talk about the mind, which is interesting because it's all Greek. And I'm going to get into some Greek because I thought the Greeks kind of messed up another word. So, but it's just so funny because the Hebrew word, I love it. I think it's more authentic. But anyways, so the heart. Wisdom dwells in the heart. Point blank. That's where it dwells. Our heart has thoughts, emotions. It's physical, okay? The Hebrews knew it was physical. And there's a desire, especially with David, a desire in my heart, God. I want you, I'm running after you. I want the desires in my heart to do what I want to do. And I think that's really interesting how the Old Testament really, I feel like they really figured out the heart thing until you got to Jeremiah. Okay? So Jeremiah was basically saying our heart is really bad and really deceitful. And it was just, it was sick. It was a sick heart. And I think Jeremiah just watched people, he watched a whole generation turn away from God. And I think it was like he just couldn't figure it out. And he just wanted God to be where David was. And it just wasn't. It was like the Lord was working on these people. Okay? And I'm going to explain something to you right now that I got a revelation a few years ago about, and it's where circumcision. And it's not a circumcision like we all know. It is actually a circumcision of the heart. Okay? And a circumcision of the heart is basically we are removing, when we love God with all of our heart, mind, and soul, in all of our strength, we are removing the stubbornness and the evil away from our heart, because over time it will grow. Our words matter. What we say, what we do, there will be a hardness of heart. And what happens is the Lord is like delivering us from evil. He is literally delivering us. And we have to understand the circumcision. And it's unfortunate, but if as Christians, if we don't know how to get past that, if we don't know how to get past our stubbornness and our evil in our hearts, we will probably turn our back on God, because our heart is so vulnerable. It is so vulnerable to who we are as a person. I mean, the Jews, I thought the Jews had it right. That's where we thought. We thought with our heart, right? But it can also be devastating, and we can turn our back. And it's probably why in the New Testament Paul talks about that there is that God will basically judge our heart. He knows what's in our heart. He knows the secrets in our heart. Because probably I don't know for sure, but I wonder if it is this stubbornness and this evil that has just encased our heart, and we need to be circumcised. We just do. As Christians, we do. It needs to happen. And how do we do that? Well, probably the biggest thing, I know for my example I'm going to give you, is to be on your knees and give God all your heart. Forgiveness, what he did on the cross. Jesus is the perfect example of that. What the Jews back then had, all they had was what Moses built with the tent, and then with what David was building with the temple, and how we had to go through the gate, and then they had to slaughter a lamb, and that's how you guys got into the Holy of Holies. That's how we got in the Holy of Holies and all that stuff. But now Jesus is on the cross. We can enter the Holy of Holies no matter what. And we just have to recognize our failures, and we have to give everything. I mean, that is the whole purpose of giving God all of our heart and worshiping him with all of our heart. We have to. It's just, I almost want to say it's a mandate, and it's a thing that should be in all of us, honestly. I think it should be on all of us, and I think that's what we should be doing daily. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not doing it daily, but I think it should be done daily. Okay? I'm admitting my failures now, I guess. I'm not doing it every day, but whenever I think about it, I do try. There is one thing that I heard this preacher say, and it was actually one of the best examples I ever heard. Before he goes to bed, most of us, I know I am, I'll be scrolling on my phone, doing emails, reading political stuff, whatever. And this preacher basically was like, sit there, give God everything. And a lot of us probably pray before we go to bed or whatever we do. But he said he just sits there and he just waits until he hears God's voice. And then guess what happens in the middle of the night? He says more often than not, he is praising the Lord in the middle of the night. And he'll wake up in his sleep, all of a sudden he's praising the Lord. And one thing he was saying was that there was a consistency there. He was doing that every night. And he was like, he had a vow to the Lord, I'm going to do this for 3 months, every night. And one night, he was saying that he did not do it one night. He totally forgot. He said in his heart he felt homesick. And he didn't understand why. He was like, why do I feel like this? Well, the Lord said, you didn't give me your heart that night. And I thought that was actually really amazing, and how the Lord actually wants our heart, and he's more intentional than we really think. And I think he deserves it, obviously. He has all wisdom, he's all knowing, and he's all powerful. Okay? All right. In Proverbs 5, there we go. Slide 5, sorry. Guard your heart because it flows your life. And I love that. Everything flows from your heart in its life. Okay. Let's go to 7 there, Kurt. All right. So, soul. There's some controversy with this one. It's actually kind of fun. Nephesh is soul. Okay? It's mentioned 700 times in the Old Testament. And the word soul comes from the ancient Greek. Well, what we know of as soul, it comes from the ancient Greeks have told us that it describes the soul as a non-mortal part of your body, part that is trapped in your body and is released at death. That is not true. The Bible explains a little bit more about this because the soul is way different. That's what the Greeks were telling us, and that's what probably a lot of our textbooks tell us. I mean, honestly, I thought that's what it was. If you would have told me that, I would have been like, yeah, that's what soul means. If you gave me a test or something. So, this is the cool part about your soul. Your soul is translated as throat. Okay? Yes, it's translated as throat. This is what it meant as the Jews. What I was finding out, they didn't really understand what soul was, what nephesh really was. So they were kind of going through it, and they were saying, I need to satisfy my throat. I need to satisfy my what is dry. So it's a satisfaction. So they were. It's a perfect illustration because what Jesus did with the woman at the well, I am the water. I give you life. Right? I drink from the well. And it was, you need to replenish your soul. That lady, she went through 5 marriages. Her soul needed to be repaired. He was like, I'm going to give you water. It needs to be replenished, period. It just gave me a different aspect and a different, a whole different side to that whole passage. So anyways, our soul is living. It's a physical being, and it's breathing. Okay? It's basically our whole body, because this is where any water, anything enters our mouth and into our throat, and it satisfies us, and it replenishes our whole body. So that is our soul. Okay? In Psalm 119, it says, let my soul, nephesh, live, that it may praise you. I thought that was interesting, way that David was talking about that, or whoever wrote that psalm in Psalm 119. Let my nephesh live. Let that praise you. So it's real, and I think soul is more important than we really think. And we need to keep feeding that soul. How do we feed our soul? We need to drink from the Word. We need to keep communion with God. We need to keep doing what we need to do to be in alignment with God. That is going to replenish our soul. Okay? My nephesh thirst for the living God. In the Bible, there's so many different passages about thirst, and probably one of my favorite ones, I love the Beatitudes. I don't know about you guys, and Matthew, the Beatitudes are one of my favorites. Probably the first thing when I was in Catholic school, this Bible teacher, the only thing I ever learned in that class was the Beatitudes, and I don't know why. I just thought it was a weird word. I really don't know why, but I paid attention when he talked about the Beatitudes. Maybe because the Lord knew I was going to really like it, and I was not the kid. I was definitely the kid sitting in the back literally throwing stuff at the teacher. So I was not the best student, and I was, as Mom described, I was a little ornery. I really was. As a 16-year-old, I was 10th grade, so 16, 15-year-old, I did not want anyone tell me what to do. That's just who I was. But the Beatitudes, and one of the Beatitudes is, blessed are those who hunger and thirst to fill our soul with righteousness will be satisfied. Once again, we're going to be satisfied. We get satisfied with drinking the water that the Lord gives us. And I think it's fun. I think the Lord has too many too many ways to describe one thing, and I think it's beautiful, really. I mean, he created us to love him, and I think this is one of the best ways to do it. And I love that passage. I mean, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness will be satisfied. I mean, that just, every time we eat, we're satisfied, if we eat something good. And usually here we have something good. I'm always asking them for leftovers, or wondering if they have leftovers anyways, if not asking. Because it's Sunday morning, I'm ready to come home. I'm like, man, I'm ready for some of those leftovers. But anyways, but my soul will be satisfied. So, I'll give you a little story because I think this is important. We had a pastor from Uganda come to our church about 10 years ago. And he's a fiery Pentecostal short guy that Ugandans actually speak a little English, and his English is very, very broken, if you could tell. Someone from Africa that lived in a bush. He didn't live in the big city. He lived out in the bush, and it was rural. And you can kind of tell by his accent. I don't know how they are, but you could just tell if you got a southern guy, like a guy in the woods, this is kind of how, his English was pretty broken. But it's funny because I think their second language is English, but I think he might be a doctor. So it's just funny. Anyways, he's just a little bit. I love this guy. Okay, he was up there with fire and power, praying and prophesying over every single person that came up to him. I mean, he loved every single person in America. It did not matter. He did not care. He wanted to give you a word. And after we were living, after he was praying for us, I was like, man, this guy, I was telling Dessa, I was like, this guy has it. There's something on this guy that's way different. And he was fasting for 40 days in America. Yeah, I was like, You're going to come, and I think he did it for 3 weeks. So he was trying to do it for 40 days. He did it for 3 weeks. He was only eating, I think our pastor basically was like, we have dinner, and I think he was breaking it for dinner. But then he was fasting the whole day, so he was only eating dinner here when he was visiting us. But there was just so much wisdom on this guy. And after that, it was like Monday morning or Tuesday morning, I can't remember. This is like 10 years ago. I woke up in the middle of the night. I could feel the presence of the Lord. And my soul was singing and praising. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning. I remember waking up and like, I want to praise God. I was up and I was like, whoa, what just happened? And the Lord was revealing to me, there's a revival spirit on this guy. And he's my son, and he was starting to reveal a bunch of stuff to me. And I was like, well, Lord, that's awesome. And I want what he has. And he was just fasting forever. And there's a whole journey. Now we just saw him a few months ago. And during that time, he was going to Chicago. He was here for 50 or 60 days. I don't know how many days. Anyways, his journey was going from Colorado to go see a Benny Hinn preach in Chicago, but he had no money to get there. So he was literally, people were coming up to him and handing him money or tickets or plane tickets. He was flying. So his story was wild. The Lord was providing like crazy. It was such a testimony that he particularly has in America that is just awesome. We don't see that as often here, because it's obvious in America, but he's from Africa, so he can live on the wild side. He could sleep outside if he needed to, you know what I mean? Like he's just that guy. He would survive. He's awesome. But here's the thing. I feel like he was so hungry for God and he was so thirsty for it. Things just happened and he just devoted his life to God. And I just feel like we need to get back to it. We need to get there. We need to feel that revival spirit. And here's revival spirit. Here, I'll give you a little bit of something else I don't have in my notes. Revival spirit is temporary. I say that. You ever see revivals come and go? How many revivals have we seen throughout the history, church history? The Brownsville revival, I wouldn't say the Jesus movement was a revival. I believe that was actually a movement. But some of these different revivals in the Pentecostal church that just happened, and things just kind of went and gone. I know one of the ways to sustain that is to love God with all of our heart, mind, soul, strength. That I believe that is, if we were ever going to, like, if the formula, if there ever was one, which I don't believe there is, but I'm going to give it to you. I believe that is one way to keep and carrying that revival forever. Okay? I think that's interesting. I think revival can be very temporary. We could fill up stadiums and see all this stuff, but I want to see something sustaining. I really do. I want to see miracles that are sustaining. I want to see a love and people have a compassion to see people healed. You know, limbs, miracles, and all that stuff. But yeah. Side note, I just love talking about that stuff because my early days of when mom and dad, then when they met me and I met Teresa, I was waking up early and going to a prayer house in Boulder that we were starting, and we were just seeing God move. I mean, it was revival. We were seeing all kinds of stuff. We were seeing the joy of the Lord, the laughter of the Lord. We were rolling on the floor. I mean, we'd be in a room and someone would walk through the door and they'd fall to the ground, and there was like 4 or 5 bodies at the front entrance, and we're like, what is going on? And we're just laughing and giggling and, you know, like just being wild, running, guys taking off their shirt and running around. You know, it's 5 degrees outside, and it was just, it was wild. You can't explain it, you know, and people were, and I won't lie to you, people were freaked out. People didn't know what was going on when I was on the ground in Boulder in an apartment complex laughing, and I couldn't get up, and the Lord was telling me, don't get up. I'm with you. And I'm like, but I want to get up, and the heaviness of the Lord, and I was just laughing and rolling, and any person that came near me I was touching, they were falling on the ground. And I was like, this is kind of cool, you know. You're just like, I'd never experienced that in my life. And it was more of a Pentecostal, like, holy roller stuff, which was awesome because I didn't even know that existed. I didn't have church life growing up like that. I grew up in a Catholic church. But when I saw the joy of the Lord just come on someone, and I was pinned to the ground, and there's people, and it was in Boulder. People are looking at you weird, you know. You're in an apartment complex right in the middle of almost like a commune, really, and it was an older apartment complex. But yeah, I mean that's what I want to see again. I would love to see again. We probably still have that in different churches, but I don't believe we can live life like that and just walking around falling over in Chipotle and start being weird like that. I believe that's for the church body. And I remember the Lord telling me, I said, because I was like, Lord, why can't I do this anywhere else? And the Lord would always tell me, no, this is for you and my people in my church. Because we were at a church in Boulder, and we were doing that from 7 to 10 o'clock, like every night. It was like a whole year. It was close to a year that we did that. But yeah, we were just praying and singing, and people prophesying, and people having visions, and, you know, on the floor, and then, you know, shaking like crazy. But that's the thing. That's a revival, and what I really want to see the church do is what I was telling you earlier. Is I just want to see the church just on fire and going after God and just loving Him. So, and I do believe this next generation, and whatever generation is in their teens, and even maybe in their early 20s, I believe those and younger, in my kids' generation, I believe those kids are going to experience something they've never experienced before. Every generation probably says that. Dad, Mom, you guys have said that, but I do believe that it's going to happen again, and we're going to see people just radically. It's going to be like the Marvel series where people are literally having superpowers, and I believe and it's going to turn for the good and not for man. So, and I really do, and I know that's kind of out there, but I think these people that act like they have these superpowers, like these spidey senses, and they can float and do all this stuff. I believe that's going to be a part of what this next generation is going to experience, and Magneto will never die, But anyways, so all right. So here's the next one. We go to slide 8, which is strength, which is miad. That's the Hebrew word for strength. The Greek word for miad would be dunamis. Okay? Dunamis means power of strength. 300 times, it's mentioned 300 times in the scriptures. Okay? Miad's a very interesting word that I found. It basically means everything, muchness. It's an adverb. It's a word that comes alongside other words to augment their meaning and intensifies the meaning of other words. And that's basically what miad is. It's a strength. Okay? So we are going to love God with all of our strength. With all of our heart, mind, and soul, and strength. And I believe, I keep on saying mine, but forgive me for that, but strength, this word is, it could be very interesting. I didn't really find a whole lot on this word because it's kind of vague, a little vague. They don't really, the Hebrews didn't really give me a whole lot of goodness on this, but you have, miad is to love God with infinite capacity. Okay? It's just like, it's not strength how we're building muscles. It's just we are supposed to just everything, do it with everything we have. Okay? It's miad. So I'm going to give you a little bit of passages that I think are very helpful and interesting. In Psalm 84, it says, "Blessed are those who dwell in your house. They are forever praising you." We are forever praising you. And I believe he's talking about the whole church. We are forever praising him. We're always praising him. And then the second sentence in that passage is, "Blessed are those whose strength is in you. You have set their hearts on a journey." Hold on. "You have set their hearts on a journey to the holy place." So basically, he's talking to the whole church on basically what the Muslims do, but he's talking to us, the Jews, as going to the holy place, and that's what they had for Jesus. And for us, it'll be to go to Jesus, going to him in the holy place. And I believe we should all have a little bit of a holy place going on in our house. I really do. We should find that time. If it's a time, it's a place, it's a bathroom, it's a closet, it's the shower, we should be finding that time. I believe that is going to be a key to our success as Christians into loving God with all of our heart, mind, and soul and strength. And that's just what it is. We have to find that time. If we don't find that time, we're going to keep, our hearts are not going to be circumcised, and the evil's still going to be there, and we're still going to be stubborn, and we don't want any help, but we need to deliver us. I know this is a little weird. We need to be delivered from evil. We just do. We do. How many of you guys, have seen we have not been the best of ourselves, right? And I believe there is still evil in our hearts. I believe we're not 100% clean. I mean, even some of the thoughts that we have, we're like, why did I think that? You know, I mean, how many times? I mean, I do that a lot. I'm like, why am I just like, sometimes I'll shake my head, and I feel like sometimes it's an attack, and sometimes it's deeper than attack. It's like in my heart, and I'm like, oh Lord, you need to deal with that with me. And it's a circumcision of our hearts. Okay? So, yes. All right. Well, that's all I really have for you guys. I would love, however this is going to look, I would love to pray over you guys.